Hello and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. I'm Keaton Shaw.
And I'm Sean Michael Small on this wonderful, glorious Thursday. Yes.
Happy Holy Thursday, Sean.
Yes, happy Holy Thursday to you too, Keaton.
You know, for a bright, sunny, beautiful, wonderful day, don't you feel alive? Don't you feel great? Don't you feel energetic? Because you sound like the complete opposite.
Yeah, no, I don't.
You didn't have your coffee this morning, did you?
No, I did not. So, folks, you don't want to see a cranky Sean ramble on. Let's go straight into the daily review.
We see that anyway.
And our first story is an interesting one. I'm not entirely sure how much of my pessimistic self wants to really get down on some of the details of this story. However, there's been a recent report yesterday that there are plans to buy 300 new buses, 250 of which will be electric. 240, 60 will be CNG. It's expected that these buses, even the electric ones, would be cheaper to maintain and potentially even just cheaper overall. And of course, this is TNT. It's not unique to TNT, but we spoke about it at length yesterday. You know, buying new things, ooh, nice, new and shiny. It's all well and good. But maintaining the things, it could be cheaper. That's not the issue. The issue is, can it still be maintained? Because now we're looking to have to get specialists, maintenance people, technicians. No longer can you just get an auto mechanic, potentially, who you could recruit with experience from other small shops, large shops, whatever. Outside of car dealerships, I'm not too sure how many mechanics have experience and the proficiency dealing with pure electric motors. That's the other thing, because it doesn't sound like they're going to be hybrids.
No.
Right, which is, we have a few hybrids in TNT. These are pure electric motors. And then, we don't know what the price of these buses are going to be, but we do know that there's supposed to be a $30 million substation that needs to be built. Because as much as we think, oh, electric is green, the power has to come from somewhere. So we're still building natural gas or something for it.
I thought that I was the pessimistic one and you were the optimistic one.
Only when it comes to the opposition's chances of re-election.
Oh, yes,
Then you are much more pessimistic than me.
I suppose, but in this particular instance, I'm rather optimistic. I think this is good news overall, and it's news that whilst I'm not going to, say hurrah first, I have to be patient because right now the tender is out. The buses actually have not been procured as yet. Mm-hmm. So we have to wait for that to happen. But on the face of it, and I do recall that the PTSD chairman, Edwin Gooding, he was on the station when he highlighted these plans. He said they want to double their fleet, but they've gone further and they said that we want pure electric buses and then we want CNG buses. And I think that's good. Now, the thing is with the CNG buses, I hope they're well fitted and well maintained because CNG burns very quickly, if I'm being honest. But apart from that, overall, the mere fact that they want to install GPS in the buses, I think that's good. And I also think that the intention and the idea to create an app which will provide for real-time monitoring, I think that's also good. Although I would also suggest that a lot of individuals, even perhaps senior citizens who utilize these buses, may not necessarily utilize smartphone technology. So, bear that in mind as well. But I think overall, if I read the story, intent is good. Implementation, well, we're hoping that happens because we can hear in a year or two's time, well, we've purchased 50 buses thus far. And the other factors, including the construction of the substation, the charging station, that's separate. Yeah.
So we don't know, because obviously this will potentially save fuel costs, but it will add a lot of upfront capital costs. And of course, that's something else that needs to be maintained and is a very expensive singular piece of equipment. The PTSE does not have a reputation of maintaining its fleets, much less maintaining a substation. The other thing with the app is, from what I understand, and unless I read the report wrong, the tender for the buses also has to include, I believe, the substation and the app. Now, one might think, yes, all in one thing. But how many bus manufacturers, now, granted, they probably have looked into the substation, but to what extent have they looked into an app? And then to what extent do they have the capabilities or looked into an app that would suit our needs,
They said that they're actually going to partner with a local telecommunication service provider. Right? And if they are going to partner with whom I would assume
I'm not worried about bandwidth.
I'm not worried about bandwidth. I'm just worried about the quality of the service.
Right. The app itself, the development, right? Unless it's somebody else who they're offering app developers to tender, I think it seems as though they're asking whoever's doing the overall contract, do I really want an app by bus manufacturer? That's the thing. So the implementation, it's very questionable. And then the other thing is, to what extent now, to me, it almost looks as though, well, we want to do this project, but we don't really know how to do this. So we'll find somebody who's going to do an all-in-one for us. The problem is, of course, we've seen, in local situations, yeah, I could do this, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that. Person ends up not being good at any of them.
But the overall question that I asked myself reading this article, and again, let me stress, I think it is overall good news, or at least the intention. I'm asking, how is this going to equal or equate to a more efficient, effective transportation system? The reason being is because even if you're doubling your fleet, it doesn't mean that your entire fleet is going to be operating at the same time. The second thing is probably that in itself is insurance, given the fact that maintenance is an issue of which you've raised. Because whether or not it's going to ease the cost of maintenance is whether or not we can actually maintain it on a whole. It will provide the opportunity for training for some mechanics to deal with, obviously, electric vehicles. But is this really going to help ease the congestion or ease the burden of travelers?
So the cynic will say that new technology might mean that some people will be retrenched, or because they don't want to learn new technology. So it could potentially change some aspect of their workforce and by extension the work culture in there. But we have to see it to believe it. That, you already more or less said the real problem. PTSE, maintenance.
How is the PTSE going to afford to purchase these buses, and how are they going to repay?
You see, that's a whole other question, because I would assume this green initiative has the backing of central government, and that's fine. Paying for the buses, however the government finds the money for it, that's fine. The initiative on the surface...
Is it?
The initiative on the surface, seems fine. You would probably have to run a lot of comparison of the numbers to be sure. My issue is, again, it's easy to start hot and sweaty with something, to go all in, to say we're doing this. Can the vendor deliver, despite whatever the tender process is, right, on all the things that is needed, to the extent that it's needed, and then can we maintain it? Those are two big questions. So it's fine for us to spend the money, but if those two questions fall short, that more or less means it could end up being a big waste of money.
I don't think it's just fine for us to spend the money. I think we have to, as I said, I think we have to be smart about our money. And I think even though overall they're saying that this is going to help with cost, how are we actually going to...
well, that's the other thing.
Yeah, how are we actually going to regain the money spent? How are we going to get back that money, and where exactly are we getting the money? Even if it has the backing of central government, I hope it's not another IDB loan.
That's the other thing. With green, and we'll get into this in the next segment, but green things, it's assumed that there'll be cost savings, and sometimes it doesn't work out that way because of the expense of new technology. But folks, we have to move on to the next story before we run out of time. And this is interesting in that the Ministry of Trade is predicting that a little over 2,000 jobs should be created additionally for this year, according to Ministry of Trade. The minister, well, she more or less said, given the levels of investment by both local and foreign firms. I'm not entirely sure if I see foreign investment, but all right, I'll take it at face value, at least for now. You know, she thinks that there's enough confidence in the economy, and the amount of investment, she's saying 874 million. That's what's giving them the estimate, or that's how they're working out. They figure, well, we could see 2,000 new jobs for this year. We're in April. I mean, I'm not seeing the economy expand.
The minister has to be absolutely precautious in anything that she states, because if I were to use a microscopic view and analyze the situation, she was stating that they should be created. She never says that approximately 2,000 jobs are going to be created. They should be.
Potentially.
Yes. That means not even one job could be created, right? On the practicality of it. But again, what can be deemed as foreign direct investments? Well, with the jobs being created in the manufacturing sector, for example, and food and beverage. Let me take a look at Starbucks. Now, I think we all enjoy Starbucks. There's no secret about that. Everybody enjoys a cup of coffee from Starbucks. So it's just the, I suppose, the entire notion that
I don't know.
I'm having Starbucks.
Every time I drink Starbucks, I think I'm like drinking my money away.
But the point is that these things, even if you create those jobs are not necessarily sustainable. Furthermore, given the current climate and given the situation we're in as a nation, that is more costly, in my opinion. I don't have hard economic data to back up this, but it's a theory based off of what I understand. It's costing us more to actually have Starbucks in Trinidad and Tobago. And not just Starbucks, I'm just using that as one example. But there are other companies as well. It's costing us more because of the amount of foreign exchange that comes out of TNT. Remember, some of these companies, everything down to the straw, down to the napkin, is imported. You know, that's one of the reasons why Pollo Tropical, which was around the Savannah, had to close down. But also, foreign direct investments, again, we are too vague in our understanding of this, simply because the minister is too vague in the information that she's giving. If you deem foreign direct investment or retail, such as all those stores that are opening up in West Mall and Eastgate Mall, right, and they're not local.
Yes.
They're not local. They're international foreign brands, which again, that's all well and good. But it seems as though those are the only stores that are not only able to open up in these times, those are the only stores that are able to expand in these times. So again, even if you're predicting so many jobs, you're not allowing for local businesses or local entrepreneurs the opportunity to create their own jobs or create avenues for others to actually have an income.
Now, some people might say, well, look, we import everything. So what's the difference between, you know, local brand importing and foreign brand importing? And I think the main difference is the profits, if it's a foreign owner, has to leave. So that is an additional burden. We're not just spending money to bring the products in, but then foreign exchange has to go out again to send the profits out. Therein lies the conundrum. The question is, why, if the government wants to say that, you know, we are fiscally disciplined and responsible, to what extent is our, you know, balance of trade looking disciplined and responsible? Because, you know, we said it also yesterday, the IMF could say what they want. It could try to use positive language about our foreign reserves. But at the end of the day, we've more or less just managed to maintain what we have for all intents and purposes. Yeah, we added a little bit of money, right?
Not by our own doing, but special drawing rights
right.
again.
But we managed to maintain the 6 billion over the last 5 years after taking money out. So the key point is, what people need to understand is maintaining money at that level is not an accomplishment. You expect growth. Just as a matter of course, you expect some growth. And 1% of 6 billion is not a small amount of money. So the fact that we've managed to maintain Yes, there was a pandemic, whatever, but other places are achieving higher levels of growth than we are in different areas.
And I think we're also very fortunate to even see at this point that we're able to maintain 8 months of import cover, given the fact that we are importing oil and, as well. When oil prices shot up on Monday and it surprised everybody, maybe it's good news in the sense that the minister pegged the budget on this, but we remember we're importing still to actually refine it and process it. So I think overall, ladies and gentlemen, if you take a glance at the bigger picture and look at the reality of the state of things and the economy, I was very optimistic with the first story. This one I take with not a pinch of salt, but rather a spoon, a big spoon of salt.
A heap of salt?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so foreign direct investment, what does it mean? You know, on a practical level, what kind of jobs are going to be created? And then now, the more foreign firms that come in, that import cover could, you know, be chewed up real quick. Right, those foreign reserves, because they need it to conduct their business more than a local company. But local companies need it as well. So having 8 months cover, we don't know what could happen. And I keep saying this, what is the plan for another crisis on a global scale? Are we prepared? The answer was no. You know, 2 budgets ago, I asked the question, are we prepared? No, war in Ukraine happened. You can't just assume a next crisis is not going to happen. So we need job creation, but I do wonder to some extent, one of the reasons why it's kind of left to whoever, these big firms to invest, a lot of which are foreign, is because I don't know if it's a lack of faith in local entrepreneurs as much as they want to, you know, give lip service to developing small and micro enterprises and local entrepreneurship. We don't necessarily see, you know, the proof. Actions speak louder than words. You could tell me that you're looking to support local small business owners all you want, but I don't see the heavy initiatives to say, well, yes, and the examples of success stories in these instances.
I don't necessarily, and understand what I'm saying, I don't necessarily need a grant. But if you can simply help the burden or the congestion
ease of doing business.
With the ease of doing business, you are already clearing the path for me to successfully establish my business.
Or in this case, making foreign exchange regulations clearer, because it seems as though there's a whole host of unwritten rules with regards to who could get how much foreign exchange, which you've alluded to many times.
Not necessarily unwritten. There are individuals who we know who have easy access to foreign exchange. But if you need any foreign exchange, you can go line up in a bank right after Talking Point to get your 250 USD. And as somebody said yesterday, you need to give a hair sample, a nail sample, a urine sample, you know, do an eye scan,
DNA
test.
sample, a blood sample.
All of those things just to get that.
Your footprint, your fingerprints, your eye scan.
Let's take a break here on Talking Points, and when we return, well, we'll continue the conversation I started earlier with respect to green and renewable energy. We'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Gentlemen, and the first story we covered this morning was part of the government's plans or initiatives, potentially at least, with regards to, going greener in TNT. Of course, climate change is a hot topic as we see weather patterns get crazy, for lack of a better way to put it, or to put it simply, around the world. And we have our own concerns as a Caribbean island, what happens to us. So we want to do our part. I understand that. However, the technology is not so simple. It's complex. And we're already seeing one of our first major forays into green energy hit some stumbling blocks, or at least some unforced errors, which we'll get into in a bit. But I believe perhaps we should be looking and anticipating future technologies. For more on what I'm talking about now, let's cue this.
At the beginning of photosynthesis, there's an explosion of energy, like at the source of a river. Extracting the energy from this stage has proved impossible so far. That's until scientists tried lasers.
What we've done is we've taken a laser and shined it directly into the living cell. This is a cyanobacterial cell. And the laser flashes 1,000,000 billion times faster than your phone camera takes video.
The laser lets scientists see what's happening at the start of photosynthesis in useful detail for the first time. The laser showed the working of the electronics of the cell. That gave researchers a target. Once captured, the electrons were chaperoned out by a molecule shown here by the white dots.
You can't get better efficiency than taking it right at the beginning of the photosynthetic chain. Because we're taking it right from the beginning of the chain, we can reach the maximum efficiency possible.
In the experiment, a dinner plate-sized amount of the bacteria powered a computer for 6 months. This kind of efficiency is helped by how good plants are at soaking up sunlight. Plants absorb 100% of light from the visible spectrum of the sun. Compare that to solar panels, which absorb nearly a third less. The way plants get energy from the sun is through photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, plants take carbon dioxide from the air. Along with water and with the help of sunlight and chlorophyll, they turn it into sugar and oxygen. These end products mean the chemical reaction forms the basis of most life on Earth. Plants use some of the energy they capture for functions like growing, moving towards or away from sunlight, or for distributing nutrients around their stems, stalks and leaves. But not all of the energy absorbed is used, so scientists say the electrons taken from the plants are spare.
Now, what the next challenge is to design agents by which we can move that electron to your phone or to an electrode.
The new energy could look like solar panels, or a bioreactor like a brewery.
This is a remarkable discovery. How did you come up with the idea?
Well, we were actually sitting in a bar where we came up with this idea. It was a real experiment. We actually didn't know what would happen. And we had a real privilege to really be there and go like, wow, we've actually managed to see these charges form in photosynthesis, and then eventually worked out how to intercept them.
You've come about what everyone seems to be desperately looking for right now, a powerful source of quite literally green energy. What could your technology mean for the development of the renewables sector?
Well, it's quite interesting because we already rely on photosynthesis for everything we eat and for everything that we breathe, as your really good piece outlined. But what we think now is that we might be able to rely on the plant world also to power some of our devices.
Now, how clean is the resulting energy really? How about the process's own carbon emissions, for example?
Well, photosynthesis actually grabs carbon from the atmosphere. So it's a very difficult technical question to answer actually how green a specific technology is. You have to take into account how you're making it, where you have to transport it, and how you might recycle it in the end. But usefully, using plant-based solar cells, really all you need to do to make it is give it light and water. And it has this additional advantage that it actually takes carbon from the atmosphere, which is something that traditional solar panels wouldn't be able to do.
It almost sounds too good to be true. What needs to be done to use it on a bigger scale in the future?
Well, we've already outlined how, for example, we can use this technology to power computers for relatively short periods of time, admittedly. But when we push something out to the real world, we have to consider what's called the levelized cost of electricity. So the amount it costs to make it and install it, and the efficiency that you get out, the power that you get out. That comes into what's called the levelized cost of energy. Now, we can't claim that we're ever going to be as efficient as a silicon photovoltaic, but what we can claim is that it could lead to incredibly cheap solar panels, because you can just add, as I said before, add light and water, and you get quite a good solar cell. So hopefully being able to use the abundance of water and light that we have on this planet, we can develop really, really cheap solar panels all around the world without expensive manufacturing processes.
So green energy, the trick is, and we've seen this around the world, the technology is infancy, and it's not as cheap as people claim for it to be, because the direct cost is not the only cost. There's also the fact that you need to have backup and redundant systems to in case something disrupts the power generation of your green sources. Hydroelectric is guaranteed, but you can't have a hydroelectric dam without a suitable river or water course. So not everybody can make use of that. We need to look towards the future, because we do have to consider, a small island. What are we going to do when oil and gas runs out? We don't necessarily need to solve that problem right now, and the technology right now usually tends to be very expensive. And right now, the new solar park that I believe it's the solar park that Minister Young continues to tout, of which I wasn't necessarily initially in disagreement with before. Well, now it seems that for whatever reason, the report details some or two potential reasons why. The deal was delayed enough that the expected, the price that the contract will stipulate for the energy will cost significantly more, potentially even more than what we currently pay now for our energy generation via traditional natural gas, which I guess should not surprise me that the electricity generated from the solar park will be expensive. So now I have to ask, do we need it now? When people are saying we don't want a rate increase in TN-Tech, do we need a more expensive source of electricity just for the sake of to say that we've ventured forth? We haven't even done anything significant yet on going green.
I actually find that very interesting that they're saying that it's going to be more expensive, because according to the International Renewable Energy Agency, as well as the World Economic Forum, the cost of renewable energy within the last year has actually been 62% cheaper than the cost of the newest fossil fuel. which is very interesting news because if you take a look at onshore projects, the cost of onshore projects, and this is a global average, has declined by 13%, right? And offshore has declined by 9%. In fact, I think they're predicting that more coal plants are going to shut down this year, given the fact that renewable energy, and this is a prediction from them. We can't always say that, hold on, we can't always say that predictions are going to be accurate. But given the data over the last couple of years, they've been collecting data since 2019 when new projects came on board. I'm rather surprised that this is going to happen. The biggest cost, make your point before I tell you where the biggest cost is coming from.
So the thing is, right, yes, when my solar panels are running and generating electricity, they're running cheaper than, you know, natural gas or whatever fossil fuel. The problem is, when nighttime comes, I need power. So I'm probably going to still have to have natural gas, coal, or whatever. That's why natural gas was used alongside renewables in Germany. And by having to maintain more than one set of power generation, the price of electricity, you see, so the price to generate the solar directly, yeah, that's cheaper. But the overall cost now, because I have to have redundant systems to make sure that the power grid doesn't suffer any shortages or overloads, so I have to manage it properly, right? So I need to invest in natural gas generation if I was using coal, etc. It caused Germany's cost of electricity to quadruple because it has to take into overheads, not just direct production costs. So yes, these new projects look cheaper, granted, and they probably do have the natural gas in place, but they still have to operate it. They still have to have natural gas deals with suppliers, etc., etc. So it's not going to be as cheap as that limited number says.
I will not.
That tends to be what happens in just about every country. They say it's cheaper, but then the price of power goes up.
I will not necessarily argue the point that you're making is weak, but you have missed out a couple other factors in this entire equation, which is the cost of energy storage. And the cost of energy storage, because solar power can actually be stored and utilized at night. That is where the trick comes in, not necessarily because of natural gas. For as long as natural gas is available, we're going to be refining, we're going to be processing, we're going to be utilizing it.
Yeah, we probably will use out all the natural gas.
But that is not the real issue, especially when it comes to, if we're using the example at night. The real issue right now is actually the cost of metals around the world. Because with any energy platform and any energy storage, you need semiconductors. And semiconductors globally, not only is there a shortage, but there's also, because of many factors, but the cost of metals around the world that goes into producing these semiconductors for energy storage, they're becoming more difficult to find and they're becoming a lot more expensive.
The thing is, on an individual basis, having a battery system is not cheap, but it seems to be more efficient, right, than trying to do it as a utility provider in a central location and then transmit, because the batteries battery technology is not that efficient. We think it's efficient because of our usage with small batteries, but I'm assuming here if you scale it up, but I know for certain that this is one of the reasons why solar and wind, you can't just rely on them 100%. Transmission technology is one problem because you lose electricity with transmission lines, and battery technology is another problem. Over time, these things will be solved, which with new technologies in wind and solar generation, safer wind turbines, better, more environmental, right? And like these plant solar panels, one of the things is with the solar park is in 25 years potentially, then we'll have to figure out where we're going to dump the solar panels that are now waste with high concentrated levels of materials that at that concentration is potentially toxic. Are we just going to dump it all in Ibiza again?
It goes into an overall national initiative and a national vision. You would assume, as a young individual we've done research, you would assume that the older heads, the ones that are actually in charge, would do their research as well. If there is a way that solar panels can be recycled and reused and the materials scrapped for building, that is something that we should consider as well.
Not very easily.
Because it is a point that what are we going to do when we need to replace these panels? But all of that has to be considered before just rushing to implement anything.
And I think perhaps maybe we didn't need to have projects, our initial forays into green energy right now.
As remember much as this solar park too at Piarco, I think there's one that is actually being funded by the European Union. No?
I get it. That's nice, but we still have to deal with the aftermath. That's the problem, especially if it becomes obsolete.
Well done to the European Union for basically poking us and pushing us to think about these things now, because we're running out of time.
Let's put it this way. Germany always wanted to be Saudi Arabia of green energy for a reason, and it's not for benevolence. And I'll leave it at that.
We'll pause on that for now. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on Talking Points. When we return, we welcome our guest commentator this morning. Stay tuned.
The best for your baby is at dbesttoys.com. We have the best strollers, car seats, walkers, feeding accessories, playpens, cribs, clothing, and the widest range of brand name toys like Barbie, Hot Wheels, Nerf, LOL, Fisher-Price, Cocomelon, Intex Pools, Amazon Fire tablets, HP and Gateway laptops, and the best bikes, scooters, skateboards, and ride-on. Visit us in-store at 7 Main Road, Macbean, or shop online now at dbesttoys.com. That's dbesttoys.com. We have the best toys at the best prices.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, heart disease claims a life every 34 seconds.
Our relative sitting down across the table is experiencing a heart attack as we speak.
It is important to seek medical attention urgently because prompt treatment of a heart attack could prevent extensive damage and death. Therefore, one should try to get to an hospital as soon as possible, preferably by ambulance.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Welcome back to Talking Points here on WESN Content Capital. Now, last week Thursday, it was a public holiday, spiritual shout to Baptist, and this individual, well, they weren't able to join us for then, simply because we didn't have a show. But because it's Thursday, and we're very pleased to welcome back to the program Senator Jayanti Lakshminiyal. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me once again.
Well, it's good to see you once more, and thank you for joining us. Hope all is well with you.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. So as we get into the conversation this morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and there are two sides to this. Currently, we are taking gun manufacturers in the United States to the courts. It's not only Trinidad and Tobago. There are other CARICOM member states who are involved in the lawsuit with Mexico as well, with regards to their impact on crimes in the Caribbean as it relates to guns and guns entering our shores. The other story that I find we have not paid much attention to is the fact that there was a ship that allegedly left the ports of Trinidad and Tobago. The Coast Guard have been very silent on this, that actually contained barrels of guns and ammunition. They were intercepted, if I'm not mistaken, by Portuguese Coast Guard. And thus far, no further comments. I mean, is the problem really the fact that the guns are making its way to Trinidad? Or is it the fact that we're not able to actually secure our ports of entry or borders that are allowing them to enter Trinidad?
Yeah, so, I mean, there are two things here. We have a problem, of course, this is something that I think we've learned with the drug trade, and I think now it's just as applicable to guns. We're an easy transshipment point. We're a very convenient transshipment point, just simply because of geography. But what makes it worse is that we do have a problem with securing our borders. So there's just simply easy entry and exit from Trinidad and Tobago, making it very easy for people to use us as a point to send out guns and ammunition. What doesn't stay here makes its way to other parts of the world. So the two things we're talking about here, we're talking about the firearm lawsuit. I think Bahamas might have been the first country to join on. Antigua, Trinidad, and I think St. Vincent have also joined in as well now. This is something very novel, but basically it seeks to, and it's an appeal because they lost in the first instance, right? But it seeks to, Mexico is seeking to hold U.S. gun manufacturers responsible for the violence that's ensuing in some of these countries, and we have similar problems. We don't really make guns in Trinidad or in Guyana, in the CARICOM area. It's all coming from the United States. Their industry, and because of their constitution and the laws, and each state having their own laws, there are some states in the United States that are very, very liberal. You can get access to guns very easily. There's also an issue where you have bulk selling of guns to persons without any real, I would say, there's no responsibility on the manufacturer right now to make a determination where these guns are going to end up. There's no responsibility in terms of determining whether the person they're selling to is involved in any illegal activity. So it's very possible for a gun manufacturer in the United States to actually be selling guns in large, very large quantities, bulk selling, wholesale selling, to persons who are known drug runners, gun runners, and that's how the guns end up outside of the U.S. into Mexico and also in the Caribbean region. So the lawsuit is about trying to assign responsibility and to blame or to force the industry to be more responsible. When you see a dollar figure assigned to a lawsuit, really, it's called damages, and it's really to, to penalize them, because of course, when you're dealing with commercial activity, it's the pocket where it hurts, right? So that's what the intention of suing. When you hear about I think it's a $10 million US suit or something like that. That's why the money is there. Now, the dollar figure is there because you want to hurt these manufacturers commercially, forcing them then to be more responsible. It's a novel approach in that, and it's curious that perhaps more lobbying or more bilateral or multilateral talks didn't take place with the United States to impose stricter rules and controls on their gun manufacturers. But again, their society is very, very different when it comes to those things. Their constitution, talks about the right to bear arms.
Senator, let me interrupt you there and ask you, based off of your knowledge and understanding, is it that, because you did mention this is a novel approach, is it that Trinidad and Tobago actually has a good argument and is perhaps very much within the right to go forward and be a part of this legal procedure?
Well, what we have done is really, the case has already gone through the U.S., the first tier of their courts, and it's on appeal because they lost, right? And we've joined with other CARICOM countries just as a friend of the court, amicus curiae, you call it. And so it's not really our argument, but what we do have is we're an example of a country that is suffering from the scourge of gun violence. So I wouldn't say we don't have a good case in terms of, I don't know that it depends on our case. We are not the ones making the arguments. We are not the ones, I don't know how much evidence we can produce to say that all of the guns that we find here are coming through from wherever. I don't know what sort of evidence we have, because of course that information isn't very public, but we do hear from time to time Coast Guards and others saying that the guns are entering and they're coming in from customs, coming through containers from ports like Alabama, Florida, etc., the coastal states of the U.S. And so we're a good example. And I think if that's what is needed to convince the court, then they would perhaps look at the different examples and the harmful effects that the guns have. But what it doesn't do, and what it doesn't explain to me in just my cursory review of the matter, is that it doesn't explain why individual nations aren't doing better to protect their borders. And that's the question, that if I were sitting in a court and I was the United States and I was the gun lobby and the gun manufacturers in the United States, I would be like, well, why aren't you doing more to protect your borders? Why aren't you, why is it that you have no, and we're in a position right now in Trinidad and Tobago where recently we've had a lot of information being made public about scanners and so on not working at our ports, etc.
Well, Senator,
I would ask is why aren't you scanning your containers?
Well, Senator, on that point, the guns come from the north and potentially go elsewhere south. The drugs come from the south and potentially go north. Is there any risk of, because we've asked this, you're a lawyer, not working on the case, but just from your opinion, can the U.S. now come back at us and say, well, we'll sue you for not impeding the flow of drugs coming to our country? We're a drug country at one point as well.
Yeah, well, so the drugs aren't made here. So if they wanted to, on the same principle of where it's being made, they would have to sue a South American country. But yeah, you're right. We are, our border, our lack of proper border security means that the drugs and the guns are moving from one state to the other through us, and we're not detecting it. It's a strange argument to say that. The drugs are a little different because you can't walk into Walmart and buy cocaine, but you can walk to Walmart in certain states in the U.S. and buy a gun, and buy many guns, and then get it out of the country, through whatever means, and that's part of the problem. So it's a little bit different, but yeah, if you start assigning, now remember we're not suing the United States, Mexico, they're suing the gun manufacturers.
Yes.
The manufacturers have a responsibility in terms of who they sell to, how they sell, being more responsible and all that. So we're not suing the government of the United States, we're suing the manufacturers. I think it's 7 of them, if I'm not mistaken, 7 big gun manufacturers. And
potentially 1 distributor.
Right, yes, exactly. Because that's the issue there, is really the distribution of the guns. We have to make guns. We need guns for law enforcement. We need guns for... some people are legitimate gun owners, hunters, whatever it is. And in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a very unique situation now where a lot of law-abiding citizens want guns for their own protection because they do not trust law enforcement, they don't have faith in law enforcement, and they simply see what's going on around them. And so a lot of citizens actually do want legal firearms. And there seems to be a very strong emphasis, for whatever reason, on legal firearms and production of firearms as opposed to tackling the flow of illegal firearms into the country through our border protection, and also, detecting and convicting persons who are using the illegal firearms, getting the illegal firearms off the streets. So it's a strange, I find it for us, for our purposes. I understand the bigger picture of going after the gun lobby and asking for responsible distribution channels and all of that, because if you can target it at the source, obviously they'll have less into the country. So I understand the logic behind it, but you're not going to stop the production of guns. And even if you tighten up your distribution channels and all of that, there are ways that these things can still happen.
Senator, even if this case was to go through, that does not necessarily mean that it, as you just pointed out, it would stop the inflow of guns and ammunition into Trinidad and Tobago. So is this more of perhaps a diversion or a veil of some sorts to say, look, we're actually doing everything as it comes to trying to reduce guns and ammunition on the streets?
Well, it's saying we're doing something, but it's not saying what we're doing that'll have the most immediate impact, which is to tighten up the borders. If you tighten up, if the guns, the United States could triple their gun production if they can't get into the country and get into the hands of the criminals, then we're okay. They could produce how much guns they want, but we have to tighten up on those things. There's currently, at one of our JSCs, we asked a question about some mobile scanners which had been purchased, which basically is something that can drive around the place in a truck or be driven around in a truck and can be scanning vehicles and so on to see if there are firearms hidden in the vehicle, drugs packed up under the seats, because of course we know that these things are moving around in the country and all that. I mean, they've never really been used and they've never worked and they're broken down and we don't know what's happening with the contract and they have to be repaired. And same story with these mobile scanners, and some were donated, no, not mobile, the ones on the port. Some were donated, they didn't work. This, that, the other happened. We're hearing about the vessels which were purchased from the Netherlands. During COVID, the team that was supposed to repair it left. They still have to renegotiate a contract now to get them repaired. So only I don't think half of the Coast Guard fleet is operational. Where we have a lot of work to do here before, we could to tackle immediate problems. That's what I'm saying.
A bit of a speculative question. Of course, now 3 U.S. lawmakers from the House Foreign Affairs Committees, they have brought up the question on their end with regards to guns being trafficked to the Caribbean. You mentioned it before, the situation in America, the politics about gun ownership and gun rights, gun manufacturing is a very, very, very contested, sensitive topic. And potentially we are dipping our toes into their domestic squabbles potentially by joining an international lawsuit against their gun manufacturers. But it has brought attention to the situation. Is there any concerns, however, that by, interfering with such a sensitive internal political issue, there might be some negative fallout or consequences? Politically, diplomatically?
Diplomatically and politically, right now, the government, the Democratic government in the United States, they have more support from the anti-gun lobby. Previously, the previous administration, Republican administration, particularly the Trump Republican administration, they were very pro-gun and pro-gun ownership. So I guess perhaps that's why we decided to join. I could only assume that those things would have been thought through by our local diplomatic persons. But I look a lot at the statements coming out from the president and the vice president of the United States, and they seem to share some of the concerns as it relates to gun ownership and responsible gun ownership and how much violence is being caused by guns. And I think that they are pro-gun control to an extent. But again, in the United States, every state has its own set of rules and laws, and they can kind of govern themselves to an extent. And the federal laws don't really interfere that much with or get down to that level of gun ownership. Each state, sometimes each county within a state has its own set of rules and regulations. So I don't know that it will cause specifically a fallout at the diplomatic level at this point in time, simply because of who is in government. If they were to have a change of government and a change of party, we might certainly not be favorably, because I know for sure the Republican party in the United States, and they very, very pro-gun, and a lot of their support base is very pro-gun ownership and pro-gun lobby. Now the gun lobby in America is extremely powerful.
Senator, my apologies for having to interrupt you there, but unfortunately that's all the time that we have this morning for the commentary.
We can step out. What do we do? We get a chance to talk about campaign financing, because a lot of the gun lobby in the United States has to do with campaign financing. So that could be for a next show.
Certainly. Well, I think we've just given a preview to next week, Thursday's topic anyway. But thank you very much. Appreciate your presence.
Senator.
And have a very good Easter weekend. Enjoy it.
Enjoy your Easter.
Everybody be safe. Take care.
Keep well. Senator Gianzi Lodge-Mediel on Talking Point this morning. Thank you very much once more. Ladies and gentlemen, Talking Point now breaks for WSN's News on the Hour.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Opposition MP calls on Minister to provide update on blackouts. 2 shot and killed in St. Augustine. Firearms section relocated. And internationally, Cash App founder stabbed to death. Now for the details. Opposition MP Barry Padarath is calling on the RIC to take note of the frequency of blackouts throughout the country. This comes on the heels of the blackouts in several areas, which occurred twice on Tuesday. Padarath says the blackouts are more frequent, and TNTech continues to penalize the consumers for the substandard service. He calls on the Public Utilities Minister, Marvin Gonzalez, to indicate to the population what is the reason for the blackouts. He calls for an urgent update from the minister. 2 men are dead and a teenage girl critical following a shooting in Fremont Road, St. Augustine yesterday. Reports say Daniel Riley was shot and killed while he slept at his home, while his 16-year-old pregnant girlfriend was also shot. Another man who is yet to be identified was also killed. He is believed to be one of the gunmen who was shot in the attack. Investigations are continuing. The TTPS has advised that the Office of the Firearms Section is no longer located at St. Clair. Persons seeking information on firearm users' licenses and other related services can visit the Firearms Section on the 1st floor, Police Administration Building, corner Edward and Sackville Streets, Port of Spain. On to international news now. Bob Lee, the founder of payment application Cash App and chief product officer of cryptocurrency company Mobile Coin, has died after an apparent stabbing in San Francisco in the United States. Lee's father and San Francisco police said the tech entrepreneur died early on Tuesday morning after being stabbed in the downtown area of the city, which is known for its vibrant tech startup scene. Well, that was your News to the Hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
But if we died with Christ, we have faith that we will also live with him. We know that Christ has been raised from the dead, and he will never die again. Death no longer has power over him. He died to sin once and for all with his death, but he lives for God with his life. Join WESN as we explore the death and resurrection of Christ with He is Risen, a perspective from bearing leaders within the Christian faith. He is Risen, starting March 27th, only on WESN, the content capital. Welcome back to Talking Points, and thank you for staying with us this morning. Quite a number of topics that we covered. The PTSE is going green, or intends to go green, but at what cost? The Minister of Trade and Industry is confident that over 2,000 jobs can be created, given the state of foreign and local investment. And then we got into renewable energy and the cost of renewable energy, and finally concluded the first hour of Talking Point with a conversation with Senator Jenty Lachmidel on her thoughts about Trinidad and Tobago guns and ammunition making its ways to our shores and our part of the lawsuit against gun manufacturers in the United States. Sean?
Just to go back to the job creation potential, because it was foreign and local investment. You know, we questioned a lot about the foreign investment because to some extent, you know, that's where we see like the big changes. But also, with regards to the local investment, I don't get around that much. You know, I go to work, come home, you know, economic recovery. I have actually gone to South quite a few times, ironically, as I say that statement. But I don't know if I've necessarily seen the local investment either to say that we're going to get the job creation. Just wanted to put it out there. Perhaps somebody could correct me and say, well, no, we have all of these local investments that, you know, but outside of, well, there's a new store in a mall or
the thing is that
franchise outlet.
Even a store in a mall counts, but again, the minister was very vague. Because if you're seeing that local investment is, for example, government's purchasing and refurbishment of Manta Lodge in Tobago, for example.
Okay,
that is just an example. But does that mean that it's actually going to
but
equal
it's not, but that's government
returns?
Expenditure.
It's still
in an industry that government should not be in.
And precisely the point I'm raising is because it is so vague. One can only assume.
How about this though? We also then question, is 2,000 jobs for a population of 1.399 billion? Is that enough to say that, is that good enough? You know? Now, if we had a very, very, very low unemployment rate, that might be good enough because we might not have the population to supply those jobs. But right now, is that good enough? I don't know.
If you utilize the scale that you just did, it doesn't sound very good, does it? But what is the number of employed people to unemployed people? I think Karen gave yesterday that the labor force participation rate is somewhere about 55%.
Yeah,
So which means about 45% of the population that can work and is able to work, looking for...
That's half of the working population, not half of the population.
And we don't know exactly the figure of what is the working population. And then that will tie back into your statistic. But the point is, listen, 2,500 jobs is good. If I'm able to make the individual living next door more independent and able to have an income and maintain themselves and their livelihoods and perhaps by extension their families or contribute to their household, that's good for me. That's good news for me. The issue though is, are those jobs sustainable? Are they long-term?
No, the other issue is how many jobs are we going to lose for the year?
So, okay, let's open up the phone lines, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've delayed long enough. Call in where you can join the conversation. The phone lines are on the screen. Do not call in at the very final minutes. And please, I stress, when you're calling on the television, mute your television. We have a caller on the line with us. I'm sorry, is the caller on the line with us? All right, okay, well, my apologies, but again, the phone lines have just opened up. You can call in and make your contribution now, and don't have to take 4 minutes to make your point.
If you get disconnected, please feel free to call in again. We have had situations where people have been disconnected. We don't know why on air. Obviously, we're not going to disconnect someone as we're listening to them. Or as we're still listening to them. So please, feel free to call back, caller. We don't necessarily know if the disconnection could have been a technical issue.
I think, while we're waiting for your calls, I think one of our colleagues raised, where's the Good Friday Bobuli? Who's the Good Friday Bobuli?
Oh, God, let's not get.
Are you the Bobuli? This year? Oh wait, we can't tell you.
No, I was the bubbly yesterday, Keaton. So you will be the bubbly today if we need to pick between the two of us.
Not today. We're figuring out who's the bubbly tomorrow.
Okay, tomorrow. Well,
we'll figure it out.
We're not on air tomorrow.
Well, we don't have to be on air to have a bubbly here in WSN. Oh, whatever happens, closed doors. Anyway, again, call in and join us on the conversation. My friend,
somebody is gonna cut that. out, edit it, and it's going to look bad. I'm just saying.
Well, we have a lot of creative minds here, a lot of hardworking and creative, young-minded individuals.
Oh, that's right. We don't even need to we don't even need to leave. Anyway, we have our first caller from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Let me get straight into it. With respect to those buses, PTSD going green, it is amazing that the PTSD put out a tender. Remember yesterday I talked about we good at getting new, but not repairing. They put out a tender for these buses, the electric buses. I think it's 240 electric buses they're looking for. And in that tender, they're also looking for the tenderer to also put up the substation to supply the electricity for those buses. It is ludicrous to think that a bus supplier has to do that, because apparently TNTech says it's going to take them 3 years if they have to put up the substation themselves. So they want now the supplier to get involved in that process. It is ridiculous. That's my first point. My second point is something that Keaton has been speaking about for a couple of weeks. And you mentioned it with the peppers and stuff. The issue of the state agencies not assisting local manufacturers to get out into the international market. Keaton, you're on a very good track there. We have so much local manufacturers that need the assistance with some of it is a little product development, and the rest of it is international marketing.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are people that make vodka in this country.
Yes.
Very good vodka that are not able to get a license.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of our issues that the government, they're not looking at trying to increase foreign exchange through those mediums, because we are not, as Karen talked about, that labor participation rate, which fits into the NIS issue.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to happen when the oil revenues eventually start to decline even worse than it is?
Yes.
We really need to start to develop something different, other industries to start to increase foreign exchange earnings.
Certainly.
And they seem not capable of being able to make this transition, this leap.
Well, caller, we have to cut you there because we have another caller waiting. But
thank you very much,
that's
caller.
a good point. We'll respond to that after the next caller. We have a caller from Claxon Pay. Good morning.
Morning, Sean. Morning, Keaton.
Morning.
Public.
Hey, morning.
Yeah. The new buses is good, to development. But what about the road network?
Mm-hmm.
What about the people? Which are these buses going to run? What about the people who live in the rural area? If they're going to get the services, the public transport?
Mm-hmm.
Think about the road network, how bad it is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my point about it.
No, that's a very good point, caller. Thank you very much. As I said, this is going to equate to efficiency and an effective transportation system. You don't want to have road networks with ditches and potholes and more hole than pitch on it.
Yeah.
And an electric bus goes down it and the battery or gets damaged, and all of that is possible. I mean, even right now with a regular diesel vehicle or petroleum vehicle, that's potentially happens all the time.
So when the PTSC new electric bus goes into the old Trinidad pothole and suspension gets damaged, are they allowed to bill Ministry of Works and Transport or WASA for that? So I mean, that's a good observation. Thanks for calling. We haven't heard from you for a while.
The 2 points that the caller from San Fernando raised expand on a bit. The second one with respect to, we need to be export driven outside of oil and gas and any byproducts of oil and gas. And you raised the example of vodka, and let me say, it's actually good quality vodka. We produce gin down here, which I didn't know. I was absolutely, I was happy. It was a very happy surprise when I saw we produce gin. I like gin, and it was absolutely fantastic. The local quality gin is good.
The thing is, Angostura Bitters, from what I understand, is a global product. Right?
No, it is, yeah.
Right, it's a global product.
Furthest corner of the world you'll find Angostura Bitters.
It's the only It's the only bitters that I've ever heard of. I don't know.
No, there are others, but
yeah, right, Angus, right. So first of all, we have shown in that kind of subsection of the of economies, we have product that's global, right? In bars, etc., etc. Now, with regards to I think our alcohol, does relatively well. Every now and then, one of our local beers gets mentioned by a celebrity in a celebrity's social media or whatever. The thing is, if we think, oh well, because we're not big country X, we can't do it. Look at wine. There was a time when nobody would have thought to get wine from Chile or wine from Australia, right? You get wine from France. Until eventually, you know what? Somebody had to acknowledge that the quality of wine outside of France was good. Just because we're Trinidad doesn't mean, and I think they underestimate how far something like gin or vodka produced here could go.
But I also think, and I keep stressing, and I'm glad you raised the point about peppers as well. Peppers is an excellent product. Our local peppers that we can manufacture to and package, brand it, market it to the world. And you might say, well, we actually can't supply our local markets as is, but that's the thing. We're not given the opportunity. We're not given the necessary support. So the thing is, it is there. The potential is there. We have not recognized that. Or perhaps we have recognized it and we've just blatantly ignored it. Shadow Benny in Canada, a bundle of Shadow Benny on the shelves in Canada is dollar for dollar. Yeah. So if we pay $5 down here for it, we pay $5 Canadian up there for the same bundle. The first point that you made with respect to, it slips purchasing of new equipment.
Procurement, yeah.
The procurement in TNT, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. The $30 million building, and what it does is that because that tender details the $30 million building along, or the potentially $30 million building along with the buses, it now breaks it down to only very few companies who could afford to import, supply, and as well as build that building. And therefore, you're going to see companies now getting licenses very easily to import vehicles and supply this. So think about it.
Don't mind that the license for the solar park took long to come. And that's one of the reasons why I was
think
delayed,
about it.
Or believed to be delayed.
They've done this deliberately to benefit chosen individuals.
We have a caller on the line from Chicago. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
I want to go back to yesterday when you asked Karen to read the present Minister of Finance.
Well, we didn't ask.
And I disagree with her criteria. That is what the Prime Minister asked him to do. The Minister of Finance's job is to manage the Ministry of Finance and to make sure all the laws are carried out, and if there is need for some change, it is properly analyzed. The Ministry of Finance have made no attempt to collect revenue. None. Long ago, you would read every year everybody who wins income tax and what they're going to do. I haven't seen that for years. Even the utilities, a lot of people is not paying, and when the utility try to collect it, the Ministry of Finance stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
You had the debacle about property tax, and every time when this Minister of Finance comes, he said, oh, they're ready to go for the last 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now we hear such a documents disappear. Now, how these documents could disappear? Because if it is hard copy, when I was there, it would always be a duplicate, and the two will never be kept in the same building. Even if it is electronic, there's modern systems to back up information. So that if I have to read this Minister of Finance, I'll give him a negative here. He go below zero. Because not only he is not doing any part of his work, he is doing many negatives, which is true that the other ministers are not better. Any questions, gentlemen, how are you going to do?
I leave your statements right there. I am not even going to add to it.
Have a very good weekend, Professor.
Okay, well.
Keep well.
I can't say I disagree with you, but I'm not going to say to what extent I do agree.
Of course, under your normal position.
No, but I don't want to.
Content capital. You know it's capital? That is below comma.
Thank you, Professor.
Have a good Easter. Have a good Easter weekend.
They really have resolved you, boy.
I know. Have a good Easter weekend, brother.
And the point
the problem with the rating is you give him a rating and then it could be nitpicked and argued and at least right now
your opinion is your opinion, and once you justify it, there's nothing wrong with that. But I will tie back in the point that you just made back to the electric buses again after this caller from Maraval.
Right.
Good morning, caller. Hello. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello?
Guys, we lose...
Alright, okay. Caller, we do apologize. Something went wrong there. Please call back in. There is time. There is time.
I'm wondering if the caller thought, he had a little bit of a wait, so...
no, caller, just call back in.
Yeah, just call back. Back with regards to procurement, and I alluded to this point before, but tell me, when is the next general election?
In 2025.
2025, what year is this?
We're in 2023.
And if TNTech does the substation and it takes 3 years, when will the project be finished?
I thought we were doing math here for a moment.
2026. So the reason why TNTech can't do it, folks, is because they need the photo opportunity before the next general election.
Good morning, caller.
Just saying. Morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning,
gentlemen.
we can hear you.
How you all doing? St. James calling you
St.
again on
James,
a cooler note today. And I just wanted to say, everything in Trinidad they're always frightened to do everything. If people want to get a firearm license, a lot of people don't realize, but you have to have a certain amount of cash flow, and you have to be in business and all of that. An ordinary poor citizen will never qualify for getting a license for a firearm. And I found out this because I talked to friends in the services, etc. And this is a starting, and a lot of people don't know that they're applying and they're complaining and they will never get through, right? And Trinidad, we always so frightened. You can't get this, you can't get that, as you all saying, giving license for the good vodka, the good, different types of things that we could produce. And when we're in business and we're working for a big company, you're going to do a course and they teach you about brainstorming and about coming out of your comfort zone in order to progress.
Yeah.
This is the way progress happens, right? And you need to give law-abiding citizens the opportunity to have firearms. This is my belief. The other thing is, if you hold a person with a firearm, first offense, 10 years, because a year in jail, I think, is 7 months, right? So, 10 years. A second offense, you give them about 25. And a third offense, you give them 40 years. So, if you choose to go that direction, then you choose to put yourself out of the population.
Yeah.
All right, caller, thank you. Yes.
So I just want to say one more quick thing.
Very quickly.
We have a next caller.
Quickly, that if somebody could form a group on Facebook so that we could come up with these ideas and create a group to go to the government to institute new laws.
All right, caller. All right, thank you.
Have a good day.
Sorry, we're rushing because we don't want to lose the next caller from Maraval. We have them perhaps again. Good day, good morning, caller from Maraval.
Hello.
Hi, good morning. We can hear you. You're on here.
Hi, morning, fellas. Morning.
Morning.
Maraval calling. I just want to find something straight. We tend to respond to things as it happens. Then, after it's passed, we brush it aside and wait for it to happen again to find out what we're going to do. Tobago Carnival is coming up in 4 months. The last carnival, they didn't want NCC to have anything to do with it. Now they want to get 10 million from NCC. They want to build a stage in the sea. And then we're going to wait till carnival come. We don't know if Farley's in charge. We don't know if you're in charge. She said, I don't know if you're on the board. What the hell is going on? Why don't we find out and finalize these things and push it before it happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Cole, unfortunately, I have an ND in my contract, so I can't state whether or not I'm on the board.
Wait, you're on the board?
I'm not on the board. Anyway, it's a good point, Cole. Why we're waiting until the very last minute to address these things. But you see, right now, the THA is trying to sort themselves out, the executive. So, you know, bear time with them. They're focused more on themselves, perhaps, on what's supposed to be happening for Tobago.
For the previous call from St. James, I like the idea of having aggressive laws against criminal activity. The problem is to what extent is our criminal investigation and our criminal justice system efficient enough, because you always have to weigh aggressive laws against the risk of innocent people getting caught up in these things, right? When we have police officers that could lie to their superiors with regards to who fired the fatal bullet into PC Gilt's neck, these sort of things, if I had much more faith in the system, then yes, let's go with aggressive laws. But I kind of have to be a bit concerned now because innocent people could get caught up in it. Therein lies the question. And to what extent now would we say, well, you know what, I don't care how many innocent people get caught up. We need to be that much more aggressive for the guilty to get put away. It's a balancing act. It's an ethical dilemma. But I do, to an extent, agree with you.
I just wanted to, with the call from Shigodas, what you stated with respect to government's collections of revenue, which is a major part of the problem, and perhaps the biggest problem. Point that back to, for example, the buses with PTSE and collection of revenue and monies outstanding from state entity to state entity or enterprise to enterprise. How is PTSE going to generate revenue or enough revenue to ensure that their electricity bill is paid in full and paid on time to TNTech? Because you don't want, again, the generation of electricity and to supply these power stations or these power hubs, and TNTech is not able to collect its revenue from state enterprises or state agencies, and then the burden falls on the ordinary citizens such as myself and others, where electricity rates will have to be reviewed again. You know, so it's a cycle. It's a cycle, and as I said, you have to do studies that think about all of these factors and consider all of these things. And too often, we tend to be ignorant and neglect that these could compromise or jeopardize any potential opportunity for development. So, as I said, on the surface of it, it's good news. Let's see what happens.
Back to the caller from St. James's first point, I believe it's St. James. It got me thinking, because he said, well, it's difficult for people, ordinary citizens, to get access to legal firearms. Mm-hmm. Right? And we could substitute legal firearms to access to this license, access to this whatever that you have to get from a government office, right? You know, driver's license. Who had to bribe the licensing officer? Not just a question of if they wanted to shortcut, but that they had to, otherwise they were constantly failed all the time or nitpicked to the point where they could never reasonably pass. Well, the thing is, what tends to happen, Keaton? We tend to get unofficial workarounds to some of these things, right? And then the authorities turn a blind eye to the workarounds because it's just ordinary people getting what they should be able to get. Mm-hmm. But the system is too inefficient, and the system is too slow, and the system is too whatever. But then these workarounds then turn into avenues for corruption and illegal activity and criminal activity. So with regards to firearms now, that could very well be how the FUL scandal started. You know, you're greasing your wheels a little bit, turns into you're greasing your wheels a lot, turn into now you have to grease your wheels. Otherwise, you can't get it at all, right? You're not just doing it to quicken the process or for some minor convenience. No, you're doing it just to get access. The flip side, of course, is when you could, you know, gatekeep these things and control these things, it's easier now for illegal activity to get, well, no. Yeah, that illegal gun, yeah, we cover that up. Yeah, we can make it seem legal. You know, anyway. and that's how it goes.
Anyway,
and that's why we need to cut off these unofficial channels.
Sean Michael Small, that is the end of Talking Point for today and by extension the week. Have a good weekend. I hope you get some rest.
Woohoo!
be a bit more positive on Tuesday.
Been a while since I've busted that one out.
Anyway, folks, thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you to all the callers, a valuable contribution this morning, and to all the folks at WSN. On behalf of Talking Point and by extension, the content capital, we extend a happy, holy Easter weekend to everybody. Enjoy it. Be safe no matter what you do. Use this opportunity to rest and even reflect. And we will see you, should things go well, on Tuesday morning. It's a good day to have a good day and a great weekend ahead. I'm Keaton Shaw. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The perfect mix of news, current affairs, talk, debate, mature discussions, comedy and sports. Only at WESN, the content capital.
If there was not a death, there would not be a resurrection. Jesus spoke some things while he was here, and people misunderstood him, like many do today with the gospel. That he said, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll raise it up again. He died, and they didn't understand until the third day when he came